What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the Davey Sports Podcast. This is episode 165, recording this on the evening of Thursday, December 19th, 2024. I'm going to catch up on some football and Padres offseason stuff that I have missed since my last recording. And also, there was an Aztec basketball game since the last recording, too, which we'll also talk about. Matty's here to break this down with me. What's up, Matty?
What's up, everyone?
So,
Hopefully everyone's doing well.
yeah, so I'll start with the MLB offseason because, obviously the Padres only professional sports team or major league sports team in San Diego. So we'll start off with that in the MLB offseason. Last time I recorded was right after Soto had signed with the Mets.
Yep.
And now we're going to talk about some moves that have happened since then. The Yankees, people wonder, well, where do they pivot to now after they lose Soto? Well, they signed Max Fried to a big contract. Pretty solid pitcher. He's had some injuries over the last couple of years, but I still think he's a more dependable guy than Snell was if you're comparing the other major free agent starting pitcher that's signed.
Yeah.
And by the way, that 5-run second inning was his last start as a Brave, so we beat him in his last start as a Brave, by the way.
Yep. That was his last inning as well.
Yep. And then they also traded for Cody Bellinger, and I think this is a perfect place to pivot to my next point I wanted to make about the Padres specifically because, it was basically a salary dump because Bellinger, is not the guy he was. Not that he's a useless player, but he is not the guy that he was those first couple of years with the Dodgers. You can look at his baseball savant. It's not pretty. And yet I saw a tweet that was like, that's it. The Padres are so cheap. We couldn't take on Bellinger for that. All the Cubs just gave up. The Yankees just gave the Cubs some random dude. Like, why didn't we do that? It's like, because he's not good. Like, look at his baseball savant. Like he's not useless, but he's also not helpful either for what the Padres need. So I don't know why people are so upset about that.
He's not worth the contract either that he signed.
No, there's a reason why the Cubs gave him up for next to nothing. Like, will he help the Yankees? Sure. Is he a useful player? Yes. Is he worth the contract? Not even close.
And we already have our fair share of quote unquote bad contracts on the team. And look what we've done.
Yeah. So that's the same thing. Like, if you were buying the stupid rumors that we might get Arenado and like he would play third and Manny would DH or Manny and him would alternate at first or something like that, that's just BS. And that's the last thing we need. Arenado is not even that good anymore. He's like, sure, he can still field, but he's barely a league average hitter now, and he's only going to get worse. He's older than Manny, so.
Right, so. No, it's fine. Like the big names, like, for the most part, are off the board now, which is a good thing. So hopefully the market will slow down. And
and even in the trades, like Crochet got traded to Boston, and Tucker got traded to the Cubs. So
yeah, so like hopefully the prices go down before spring training happens. And hey, we did that last year.
Yeah,
we got some good pieces off the bargain, and we did.
Yeah, and if you're one of these people who wants Profar back, you're gonna have to hope for a repeat of 2023 where Profar doesn't get what he likes and has to sell for something towards the end of spring training or right before spring training because he's in his 30s. He's had injury problems before. This was like his breakout year. He kind of slowed down the stretch, and especially in the playoffs. He has that knee injury that he tries to manage that even gave him trouble over this summer. So I don't think he's going to get what he's looking for. So every day that goes by that he doesn't get signed, get what he's looking for, a better chance he comes back here because he doesn't get what he's looking for. So just keep an eye on that. And I got to say this, talking about why people were upset we didn't take on Bellinger's money or whatever, the whole ownership, blasting ownership. Oh, they're ruining Peter's legacy and all that. You guys got to chill on that. Like, you guys realize this is not a year. Budgets are not 1 year where it's like, oh, well, you sold out every game after cutting costs and made the playoffs, and you had playoff home games, playoff money. Like, you should be good to go, right? No, it's a multi-year plan. And all these talk about like, oh, they're ruining Seidler's legacy and they don't care about winning anymore. Let me just remind you guys of this. A lot of people probably don't even know this or might have forgot it, but early in spring training 2023, Grupner was standing next to Seidler when he said, we have to get back to profitability at some point, and we're working on things for that. And, that's what you see now with the renovated suites and rooftop decks and that stuff at Petco. Like, that's like getting back to that point. And this was always going to be the plan because what they were doing 21 through 23 was never going to hold up because they knew what the situation was with Bally's. Like they knew that was about to rear its ugly head. Like they planned for this, and like and you can't blast them for say, oh, they won't go over the luxury tax. Have we gotten that spoiled that not going over the luxury tax is considered cheap now?
And remember, guys, in 2020, in between the 2022 and 23 seasons, what happened 2 off seasons ago should be a dire lesson that spending does not equal winning.
No, and just because, like, you can say that the Dodgers did, but I mean, the Dodgers also had like 100-something win teams before they spent $1 billion.
And they have all the money in the world to do all the deferral stuff.
Yeah, it's just that they finally winning a full season World Series after spending all that money was just like, well, they've had great teams all these years. It's just that's how the randomness of the playoff goes. I've talked about that before.
Right. But like, guys, remember context. We're still 2 years removed after being in the CBT 3 years in a row.
Yeah, after losing remember 2020, everybody lost money with nobody in the stands because of COVID. 21, we couldn't have a full crowd for almost half the home schedule.
Yeah.
Losing the TV deal. In those 3 years they were over the luxury tax, only one of those 3 did they make the playoffs and get playoff money. So it's like they have to like trim back. Now if like they get 3-4 years in a row where they're under a luxury tax, they sell it every game, they make the playoffs every year, and they're still being this way, then you can complain at that point. But we're years away from that point, mind you.
Yes. And there's still a lot of off season to go.
And also, let me just say one thing. It's like, if you believe like this, one source said they're determined to stay under the tax, like, we're just assuming it for the point of the argument. And by the way, Preller's better on a budget anyways, and you saw what he did this past off season. So he'll find guys. Like, when he has to be crafty and creative, that's when he's at his best. So I'm fine with it.
And remember who wrote that article, the one that we're talking about right now.
Yeah, of course. And also, one source said, great, these guys have guessed wrong about the Padres for years. And when you don't put a name on it, like, when it says one source says, who knows? That could be my dog for all we know, because they're not putting a name on it.
And again, like, and this makes sense. Yeah, our whole offseason at this point relies a lot on Sasaki.
Of course. I mean, it's so rare you get a guy who's going to come in here and probably be an ace day one. But there is something I want to say about that because we missed his official posting since I last did a recording. It's so rare you get a guy who's probably going to be an all-star level pitcher at age 23 right away, and he goes through like the minimum, league minimum for 3 years, arbitration for 3 years thing. Like, you almost never get that. So the fact that obviously, yeah, you hold up on that. But also, like, the thing is, back to what I was saying, is that these guys have been wrong about the Padres and their plans for years. Like, and when to me, those things only mean something when you put a name on it, or like it comes out of somebody's mouth and you hear it directly. Like, I heard Robert Murray from Baseball Insiders. He was saying on the Baseball Insiders podcast, when they were recording it, I watched it on YouTube, and he was saying something like, they have some flexibility. They're not going to go crazy on spending, but they do have some flexibility. Like, see, that's a guy who's a pretty good source, and it came directly from his mouth. It wasn't like we don't know who that one source is. So just wait and see what happens, guys.
Again, we still have 2 months to go until pitchers and catchers report.
Yeah, and I mean, think about it. If you can get rid of Cronenworth's contract by saying, like, attaching like 2 lower level minor league pitchers with upside or something like that, all of a sudden that opens up a lot of possibilities right there.
Right.
And so, like you mentioned with Sasaki, like that would make trading Cease a lot easier. And would you like to talk about trading Cease? Because I know you feel kind of similar to how I do on it.
I mean, ever since we lost to the Dodgers, I've wanted to trade him for multiple reasons. One, obviously, he was the biggest reason why we lost that series. Number 2, he's a Boris client. He's going to be free agent next year. So why not cash in on him instead of losing him for nothing?
Yeah, I mean, he's making $13 million arbitration with some of these free agent starting pitcher contracts. Even though it was a 1-year renewal, you could get, you get
something.
You could get like a starting caliber outfielder and like a number 4 starter for this year for him.
Right, and that's very useful.
Yeah. And
Because
like it's
again,
one of
he's
those
walking. He's walking after this year.
Yeah, I mean, you have basically like now that they're not going to be spending like they did 21 through 23, which doesn't mean they're done. That doesn't mean the run's over, guys. I mean, I don't know why you
No,
guys think that, but
but
they're
I
just
think
gonna
that's
have
a
to
hold
do
up
what
here
they're gonna
too.
have to do basically what they did last year in trading Soto, and
I
that is
think that's a hold up here. Like they're trying to see what happens with Cease, and then see if someone will take Jake, if
yeah.
possible, and then obviously
Yeah,
Sasaki.
and I think
Those are
what
the
you're
hold up.
waiting for with Cease is, because whoever doesn't get Corbin Burns that is still trying to get a,
That's the last big
a
pitcher
notable
on the
starting
market.
pitcher is gonna, I would think that, if Baltimore doesn't re-sign Burns, expect them, if Boston still wants to add another pitcher, so if they don't get Burns, you could see a trade with Boston.
That's still on the table.
Yeah.
I think
So a lot of
Boston.
offseason still to go, a lot of possibilities. Let's talk Sasaki for a second, real quick, because
I think if you're going to Cease trade, I think Boston.
yeah, I would say so too, because you could get either Casas for first base or
And then
Abreu for the outfield.
And then like a Cutter Crawford as
Yeah, and like a guy like Cutter Crawford, he's not great, but he's shown enough that with Niebla he could be useful, like as a 4th starter.
Yes.
And also, I still think that I actually think that you saw what the Padres have done, making guys who started in the minors and then they came to the majors were mostly a reliever, and then they start starting again regularly with the Padres with Niebla as pitching coach. You saw this with Seth Lugo last year, King this year. I think Brian Hoeing has a chance to be that kind of guy in 2025.
Yeah, I've
because he did well as a reliever for us. He had some success starting in the minors, so absolutely look for Brian Hoeing to be that. Maybe not as good as King, but similar to the level Lugo was for us in 23.
Yeah, I mean Hoeing was solid for us.
Just a solid middle of the rotation starter. I could see that.
I could see that too.
He has good enough stuff. He gets ground balls.
That plays at Petco.
Doesn't walk a ton of guys. Yeah, I could totally see it.
I could too. So like we have options.
Yeah, for sure. Now let's talk Sasaki. I think the odds of us getting him, if it just feels like our chances of getting him are going up.
I agree. I mean, just listening to what his agent said last week in Nashville, and then again, just a reminder, Sasaki's agent is the same agent as Darvish.
And the fact that he talked about his agent talked about the saying that it was really cool of Preller to treat Darvish the way he did with the personal thing, because remember Preller did offer him to stay on the IL so he could still get paid, even though Darvish's like, no, put me on the restricted list. So it's because it's the right thing to do. So I think that means something. And, the fact that there's rumors he wants a softer landing in a small to mid market because of the way the Japanese media covered him.
Yes.
So in that case, like, if that's actually true, and I don't know if it ends up being true, I'm not saying it will be, but, the Dodgers, Yankees, and now even the Mets after getting Soto are kind of like the national media darlings, like, who get all the attention. So,
and then on the same thing written today that I read earlier, Sasaki wants to win on top of that. And guess what? We can offer that if he comes here. We can definitely offer that.
Yeah, and I know Dodger fans will say, "Oh, well, he's not going to say no after he walks into a room with Ohtani Yamamoto in the World Series trophy." It's like, first of all, I mean, I know it's Bob Nightingale, so I don't know how true it is, but if it is true, then he said that Ohtani would not actively recruit Sasaki, whereas Darvish is going to be a part of that process here. I heard he had lunch with Sasaki or something after the meeting this weekend or something like that. I don't know what the exact context of that was, but also remember, like, Judge not actively recruiting Soto might have hurt Soto's chances of going back to the Yankees.
Probably.
The fact that Judge was indifferent to it probably didn't help the Yankees' chances there. So the fact that Ohtani's like, I wish him well, I'm not going to actively recruit him to the Dodgers, kind of feels like Judge with Soto going back to the Yankees in a way.
We could only hope.
And I'll say this too, is that, when it was presumed that the Dodgers were going to go, he was going to the Dodgers, when there were rumors that, the Dodgers already had an under the table agreement or a handshake agreement or whatever, like before the official date where he would be part of the 25 pool. And of course, which is denied. But back then, the media was like, this guy's like Japanese Pedro Martinez, Japanese DeGrom. You heard that stuff out there. But
Right.
then last week, John Morosi said something like, we said, oh, he's not a finished product yet. So if the Padres get him, he's not just going to be able to slide in and replace Cease's production right away. The fact that the national media
Oh,
is shifting their narrative on what he's going to be when he first comes kind of makes me think the odds of him being a Dodger are lower.
probably at this point. I mean, just hearing what his agent has said and everything that's come out recently, I don't think he's going to be a Dodger. I really don't.
And they flat out said too, um, when it was presumed he was going to the Dodgers. Oh, sorry. I'm sorry. Excuse me. I got this wrong. When Morosi was saying, he said like he's not Yamamoto right away. Directly compared him to a Dodger. So
Right. So there you go. Like I still think we have a chance with him. Obviously.
yeah.
So
So did we miss anything on the off season? I don't believe so. Oh, one more thing about Soto before we move on.
yep.
The ESPN article by Jeff Passan where Passan wrote that Soto admitted to teams that he met with in November that during the November meetings, he admitted to the teams, yeah, I had a difficult relationship with Manny Machado as when we were teammates in San Diego. It's like, well, I mean, that's not surprising
No.
considering what happened that season and since that season.
Right. And then I mean we've never heard anyone complain about Manny here in San Diego. So we know Manny's reputation here as a Padre for his teammates has been really good. So makes you
Yeah.
wonder, right?
Yeah. I
Makes you
mean,
wonder.
it's just not surprising at all to me. And it's
No.
like, well, now we know like what was really going on. And
Right. And then this is funny because I saw this one Yankee fan repost a video on Twitter of Soto throwing everyone under the bus except for him after we lost the game in 2023. If you remember that.
yeah, of course I do.
You remember that video, right? It's saying, I'm not the person to talk to.
Yeah. I mean,
So,
so,
like,
so good riddance. Like,
right. Good luck with the Mets, dude. Like,
yeah, I mean, the Mets got some holes to fill. I mean, if the Mets don't get Corbin Burns, where are they getting an ace from?
yeah, where's the pitching?
Who's going to be their go-to guy at the front of that rotation if they don't get
Right.
Burns?
Right. So, we'll see what happens there. But
Yeah. Anything else on baseball? I think we got it all for now.
I think we mentioned all the big trades that happened.
Yeah.
We did. So, yeah. So to continue to stay patient, I think middle of January when we expect to hear from Sasaki, that'll be the first big news we hear from the Padres.
Yeah, so he was posted December 9th. So that means the 45 days means he has to sign by the 23rd. It's going to
Yeah.
be between the 15th and the 23rd, though, because remember, after the 15th, he's part of the new international signing period.
Right. So that'll be around the date, like 15th to 23rd. Like that I should expect should be the next time we hear something big on the Padres.
Yeah. So we're going to talk about the one Aztec basketball game that's happened since then. They almost let Cal Baptist back into that game. I mean, part of that was Cal Baptist having kind of a lucky hot streak on some of those three-pointers, but we also got to rebound the ball better.
No question. I think we just let our guard down after we got up 19 last week. That was inexcusable. And I feel like they were looking forward to finals and the 10-day break.
Yeah,
as
I
well.
mean, so just work on the rebounding during the break and we should be
Right.
fine. I mean, Cal
Yeah.
Baptist even being in that game had a lot to do with them launching some three-pointers. And it was good to see that, the offense could get us a win when the defense and rebounding weren't at the top of their game, because that hasn't always been the case.
Right. I mean, we're going to be playing Cal in 2 days. I think we should be good and ready to go. And then,
Yeah. Like the only thing The only complaint about the team is the rebounding. That's it.
No question. Yeah, like I love our backcourt. Like love it compared to years past, and we're balanced. So I think the one bad bummer that we just heard today is Waters is not even close to being ready. So
I mean,
I don't know.
that's disappointing, but it's also a
Yeah.
little. I don't know. It's not a huge deal because our guards have been
No.
playing so well, but obviously you want him.
No. Maybe at this point, if he continues to not get well, maybe just redshirt him and he comes back
Yeah,
next year.
medical red shirt, and then he plays next year. That I think is the best course of action at this
I
point
think
because
so too, because like we're doing okay without him at this
we have
point.
plenty of guards for this year,
Yes.
and
Yes.
yeah, just take your medical red shirt this year and come back next year, Reese.
I
We'd be
agree.
happy to have you next year.
No question. So just a couple news in the Mountain West. The conference still sucks.
Yeah, I mean, I think
That's the
it's
bummer.
probably a 2 bids at most out of this conference.
I don't even know if we can get another at large at this point. That's even pushing it.
I mean,
So
the thing to me is like if we win the Mountain West tournament, we might be the only team
it
that
might be a
makes it.
one bid league. Yeah.
Yeah, so and I think this year is showing all the people who think that the Pac going to the new Pac-12 isn't a big deal or whatever. Like
No, it is.
it is. I mean, because you look at the Aztec schedule. Look at all the quad 3 and quad 3 road games and
Right.
quad. There's even some. We even have some quad 4 road games, which is pretty hard to do considering that.
Right.
So like
Again.
you gotta trim. That kills your strength of
Yeah,
schedule.
you have to cut
The
off
Air
the fat.
Forces, the San Jose States, the Wyomings. Those just kill.
And you're cutting off those fats when you get off when we leave the conference.
Yeah.
That's already a win in its own.
So absolutely proving the point that the Pac-12 is not a new Pac-12 is not some lateral move.
And again, like this is what the Mountain West gets for scheduling 20 conference games.
Yeah, it's stupid, and that's another reason I'm glad we're getting out of this conference after next
Like,
year. So
good riddance.
yeah, good riddance, bro. I'm with you on that. So we got baseball, Aztec basketball. All right, let's jump into some football. We missed. I didn't cover week 15, and we had the first game of week 16 tonight. Okay, I'll just start with tonight. Entertaining game, but you can't watch that game and tell me either of those teams is going to win a playoff game.
I'm sorry, both teams are still frauds.
Yeah, I mean, we talk so much about how bad the Chargers' strength of victory is. Denver's might even be worse. Denver, the only team in the playoff that's currently in the playoffs that they beat is Tampa Bay, and that was all the way back in September.
And again, the Chargers' only 2 wins that are against teams that are currently in are against the Broncos.
Yeah, and the Broncos, like, they're still going to get in because I don't see
Oh,
Cincinnati beating, even if Cincinnati beats them next week, I don't see Cincinnati winning in Pittsburgh week 18. So I still think Denver gets in, but that team's not winning a game. Like, no way. I mean, remember, they should have lost to the Colts on Sunday. I mean, Indianapolis gave that game away. Jonathan Taylor dropping the ball before he scored, the terrible trick play, which if you noticed that trick play, it failed because the wide receiver like bobbled it for a half second before throwing it across the field. If he doesn't bobble it, the play might have worked for all we know. So Denver got very lucky against Indianapolis at home. And like I said, they haven't beaten anybody. So Denver's fraudulent. Like they'll probably still get in, and they'll certainly lose to Buffalo. Chargers, they'll be in, but they'll lose to Pittsburgh. In Pittsburgh in the first round. I mean,
no question. Like again, the Chargers got throttled 3 days ago against Tampa.
Yeah, I mean, at home, like you can't tell me that team's a threat in January. Like if you lose that badly at home to Tampa Bay, I'm sorry, but you can call me a hater and biased all you want. I don't think anybody who loses by 3 touchdowns at home to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in December is a team you can be afraid of in January.
I agree, exactly.
I mean, just plain and simple. I don't know what else to tell you.
If it wasn't for the Broncos blowing this game, by the way.
Yeah. And also, I mean, the fraudulence of both these teams is showed in this game. I mean,
no question.
We hear about, the Broncos defense ranks so highly in all these categories, but like, was that a product of just playing terrible offenses? I mean, the Chargers were under 20 points the last 3 games, and the game before that, they need a garbage time touchdown to get over 20 against Baltimore, They put up 34 tonight. That's the Chargers' highest total in a month.
And what do you call it? And they gave up 3 touchdowns in 15 plus minutes.
Yeah. And we already knew the Chargers defense was, posted numbers they posted by playing bad offenses.
And
I mean, I know Denver didn't do anything in the second half offensively, but the first half, Knicks was shredding them, and it's not a great offensive team by any means. So, yeah, just tonight kind of just showed both those teams are fraudulent.
Right.
So I'm gonna backtrack now to week 15. San Francisco, you're done. Your window's over. Turn the lights out. You were up double digits on Kansas City in 2 separate Super Bowls. You blew them both. You're done. You blew your chances. You're done.
Shout out to the Rams because they've turned this around a lot quicker than I think anyone thought. After they won the Super Bowl and then they went, I believe, 5-12 the year after.
Yeah. I mean, once they started having their own picks again, they started hitting on those picks, and they've had 2 pretty good drafts in a row. And they're right back in the mix again. I mean, they'll probably end up winning the NFC West. They would be running away with it if Nakua and Kupp weren't hurt early in the season.
It's a good team. And
Stafford can still sling it. McVay is one of the best coaches in the league. And
just a reminder, they lost Aaron Donald to retirement.
Yes, they did.
Just a reminder.
So I don't think it's a coincidence, and I know it's an LA team, and we don't necessarily like them, but I don't have the same disdain for the Rams as other LA teams, especially because there are a few Dodger fans that I'm cool with on Twitter, on social media, and they're either a fan. It's not a coincidence that they're a fan of either a different team from when the 20 years LA didn't have a team, or they're Rams fans. So, and the most obnoxious ones are Charger fans, or some of them Raider fans. So,
right.
So yeah, I mean, so I don't like them necessarily, but I can tolerate them a lot more than some other LA teams. I've always kind of been a Matthew Stafford guy because I just thought he got kind of crapped on in Detroit for, he didn't beat any teams over 500 when Detroit was a really bad organization when he was with them. Of course, they're not anymore. Although I will talk about them next. I've been hyping them all year, but those defensive injuries, I think, are just going to be the death of them, unfortunately.
I don't know who's going to win the NFC now. That's good. That's wide open.
It's going to be Minnesota or Philadelphia, in my opinion. Obviously, I'll be hoping for Minnesota because the Aztec, Kevin O'Connell, is the head coach there, and I think he's one of the best coaches in the league. I think Minnesota is actually, with all those injuries Detroit has on defense, they're not going to get they're going to get almost none of those dudes back. So give me Minnesota to win their last 3, including at Ford Field in Detroit, Week 18. I got Minnesota, winning out, getting the 1 seed, and you don't want to go to US Bank in January.
No, you don't. No, you don't.
Yeah, I mean, Philadelphia obviously looks really good. But I'd probably take between whoever ends up having home field between Minnesota and Philadelphia is probably who I'd take out of the NFC now.
It's super unfortunate with the Lions.
Yeah, I mean, because they were the best team, I think. They were clearly the best team in my opinion, but the injuries were just too much. I mean, but don't worry, Detroit. As long as you got Brad Holmes, as long as you got Dan Campbell, you'll be in the mix.
And hey, they've fought through all this adversity this year. I wouldn't count them out. It's a non-zero chance. But
yeah, they're just gonna have to outscore teams. That's the problem, especially because somewhat you could say, well, they could just control the clock and keep their defense off the field, but that's gonna be harder to do with Montgomery out now. So
yeah.
They're going to have to outscore teams, which, they can do. They still got so many weapons on offense. Gibbs, St. Brown, Laporta. I mean, they still got some guys who can really beat you, but
it's
Jameson Williams, big play threat. Obviously, it's just going to be so much harder now because they have to outscore teams.
Right, and I think
Minnesota and Philadelphia types are too good.
Probably.
Even Green Bay, I would say, that would be tough to just outscore them.
Probably so. It's going to be an uphill climb for the Lions. They'll still be in the mix next year.
Yeah, and I think the one team those contenders, none of these contenders want to see is the Rams for the reasons we talked about.
Yes,
that's kind of like the hot team down the stretch you don't want to see.
But I think we found ourselves an MVP for this year after what he's done the last 2 weeks or last 3 weeks.
Yeah.
And I think
Nice.
this team's going to win the Super Bowl now.
So you think Buffalo's going to win it? You think they'll beat whoever comes out of the NFC?
I think so.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's hard to say. It's hard to. I'd lean Minnesota or Philly against Buffalo. But I could definitely see Buffalo winning against those two. Yeah.
I mean, Josh Allen has been otherworldly this year.
Yeah.
Like he's no question will be the MVP. He's playing the best football he's ever had, and he's had good years in the past as well. We all know that. But this year, like we're finally seeing him make others better without having a drama queen like Diggs on that team.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he's become a better quarterback, so he doesn't have to force the ball into Diggs, get him to shut up.
Right, and
it turns out that Khalil Shakir can play, Dalton Kincaid can play, Dawson Knox can play. It turns out, now they're running the ball more with James Cook. Turns out these other guys can play too, and you don't have to force the ball into Diggs, get him to not be a problem.
Yeah. That's how you get your beat. So I think the Bills definitely win the AFC at this point. Because they're gonna have home field more than likely. Like, who wants to go out to Orchard Park?
Not me.
January?
No one does. Especially if it's gonna be cold. Like, no one does. I mean,
again, like this is a good comparison with the Bills' perceived best chances like 2 or 3 years ago. Remember that conversation?
Oh yeah, that's a very relevant conversation to what we see here with like people like, oh, this was the Padres' best chance. Yeah, you said that in 22 and going into the 23 season as well. So it's hard to take you seriously.
Yeah, so like
the same thing with Buffalo. People said they were done after they lost to Kansas City in the playoffs last year, and look at them now. I think they're gonna get there and they might win it.
Right, like the Bills had better teams on paper than this year's team.
Absolutely. I mean, this honestly might be on paper. This might be the Bills' worst team in the McDermott Allen era.
Might be,
except for maybe 2017, 18. McDermott's first 2 years. Allen was drafted
ever since they started making the playoffs. Let's put it that.
Yeah, ever since 2019 when this playoff streak started. Yeah, this is probably the worst team they've had on paper.
And look what they're doing.
I know. So yeah, it goes to show.
That's the beauty of sports.
Yeah, of course.
So keep that in mind, okay?
Yeah, and yes, and I know someone's gonna say, "Well, what if the Dodgers get to suck and they're just loaded?" It's like I understand what you're saying, but I mean, again, I'll say again, Atlanta had 3 Hall of Fame starting pitchers in their primes for 11 years, and the Florida Marlins won more World Series than them in that time frame. So,
and again,
baseball are different, man.
And again, baseball is the most random playoffs out of any sport.
Absolutely. Any sport. So, anyways, back on the topic of football. I mean, that loss for Pittsburgh, I mean, it was at Philadelphia, so you can't knock them for it. But it does show, like, they need George Pickens. Like, George Pickens is what makes that offense go. He opens everything up. Like, there was no room for them to run the ball without Pickens to stretch the field. Like, they absolutely need George Pickens back. But I really think they're good enough to make a run, assuming Pickens is there in the playoffs.
Yeah, I agree.
The only problem I see for Pittsburgh is that unless Kansas City loses, I think Kansas City would have to lose twice for Buffalo to get the 1 seed, right?
Yeah.
The only problem I would see for Pittsburgh is that unless Buffalo somehow gets to the 1 seed, is that Pittsburgh would have to go to Buffalo in the divisional. That's the only problem I see with Pittsburgh. But
I forgot about KC because they've been playing so down the competition this year.
Yeah, I mean, I just think that, we said it about the Mets during baseball season, and then the Dodgers beat them pretty easily in the NLCS. Like, that you can only, like, devil magic like that can only take you so far.
And the Chiefs have had so much mileage over the last so many years.
Yeah, now they're playing, I think they're about to play 3 games in 10 days right before the playoffs. I know they're going to have a bye, but still.
I just don't see it with this team. I just don't.
No, I mean, remember, there's no team's ever won 3 Super Bowls in a row, and I think that streak stays alive.
I think so too. Like, not even the Patriots.
No, so it's hard to do, man. I just don't see it for Kansas City this year.
I don't either.
I mean, you can't. I'm not gonna rule it out fully because Mahomes is still Mahomes, Andy Reid's still Andy Reid, but I just don't see it this year.
I don't either.
Not this year.
No. So
We got the college football playoff, man.
we got some appetizing 4 games this Saturday. Well,
One Friday,
one
Notre Dame,
tomorrow,
Indiana's Friday.
3 Saturday, and maybe you guys will be listening to this Friday morning. So today, hey, so the first game will be Indiana at Notre Dame, 10 versus 7.
Yeah, and for any of you guys who bet on football, want to make some picks, I'll go through I'm gonna give you a pick for each of these. I like the Irish to cover the 8.5 here against Indiana. Indiana played one real team in Ohio, played one legit team in Ohio State and lost. So, they beat the teams they had to beat. That's great and all, but what was their next best win? Michigan, which is a game they arguably should have lost. Nebraska, who went 6-6.
And Notre Dame, ever since that awful loss against NIU, has been playing really well. And they beat along the way.
Yeah, they beat Louisville, who was ranked 15th at the time. They beat Georgia Tech by 18 in Atlanta. They destroyed Navy.
Destroyed Army.
Destroyed Army.
Who was unbeaten heading into that game.
Yeah, they're like this team is Notre Dame is for real, I think, and I'm usually one of these people that thinks Notre Dame gets overrated because of the Notre Dame on NBC and like the media hype every year on them. But I mean, what they've done since Northern Illinois, you got to applaud them for it. I mean,
and I think Freeman is a better coach than Brian Kelly.
Much better. Freeman's great. Like I respect that dude. I'm by no means a Notre Dame guy, but Freeman's cool.
Look at Freeman's recruiting classes and look at Freeman's record against ranked teams.
Yeah, I mean,
when Brian Kelly was there.
Yeah, I mean, it's night and day the difference against ranked teams between Freeman and Brian Kelly.
So I think Notre Dame came out better with this coaching change that happened 3 years ago now.
Yeah, absolutely. So I like the Irish to win that game pretty easily. Take the Irish minus 8.5.
Nice story with the Hoosiers, but I don't think they're ready for the moment.
Nah, give their coach a few more years and they can get there. But
like Notre Dame was built to be in the playoff, so I think they'll be more ready and prepared, especially in South Bend.
Yep. Let's go on to Saturday's games. You got Saturday morning, SMU at Penn State. I think Penn State will win this game. This is, you're a team from Texas. It's going to be cold in Happy Valley. This game's right up Penn State's alley. I'll take. I was happy SMU got in. They deserve to get in, but I don't see them going to Happy Valley and winning. And Penn State will probably just grind it out type of game. So I'd say under 53.5 in this game.
Yeah, I think that's a good bet.
And I like Penn State to win. So now,
because Penn State wants to have a better defensive showing than what they showed against.
And it's not a top 5 team, so they should win the game. They're not playing a top 5 team, so that means they should win.
Yeah,
because usually they beat everybody except top 5 teams.
And hey, this is like.
And honestly, even though they lost the Big Ten championship, they showed me a lot the way they hung in there with Oregon.
Yeah, give them credit, and hate to say it, this is a huge game for James Franklin's legacy.
Yeah. Going on to the second of 3 games, the 12-5 game, Clemson and Texas. I like Clemson to cover. You told me what the spread was before we came on. ESPN's still telling me it's 10.5, but you said it's up to 12 now?
It's up to 12 now.
So, yeah, definitely take Clemson plus 12. I mean,
I think that's way too many points.
Yeah, Texas doesn't have a great win. What's Texas' best win? A&M?
Probably.
Yeah, I mean, just not really anything there that jumps off the page at Texas for me. I don't think Quinn Ewers is that good. And, Clemson's got a little momentum after that exciting ACC championship game to sneak in. So I don't necessarily think Clemson will win, but they'll definitely are not going to get blown out. So I would take Clemson to cover here.
I think it's going to be a respectable game. I think it's going to be like a 7 to 10 point game.
Yeah, I wouldn't be that shocked if Clemson won, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
And then, oh, Saturday night, we got Tennessee and Ohio State in Columbus.
Give me Rocky Top to win the game.
Yeah, Vols money line. I'm going to say it. I mean, people are saying this is a bad matchup for Tennessee because they can run the bad matchup for Ohio State because Tennessee can run the ball with Sampson. I don't disagree with that. You know, Ohio State's weak in the trenches on offense with some of their offensive line problems. We saw that against Michigan. And there's just so much negative energy around Ohio State right now after losing to Michigan again. People want Ryan Day out of there. So I'm not a Kirk Herbstreit guy by any means, but I think he had a valid point about how playing at home might actually work against Ohio State if they start slow and the fans start booing them and chanting to fire Ryan Day.
Yeah, like there's a lot of pressure.
Yeah.
A lot of pressure.
Yeah, a lot more pressure on Ohio State here. So yeah, I actually like Tennessee to win this game outright.
And Tennessee's been a solid team all year.
Yeah. Sorry to any of my Ohio State alumni friends that listen to this, but yeah, Ryan Day is just not it.
I think we've all known that for a while now.
Yeah, I would say so too.
So those are college football playoff games for tomorrow/today and then Saturday.
Yeah, so I think that's gonna be pretty interesting. I gotta ask, what do you think overall? Who's gonna win? I don't have a great feel for who's gonna win. I'm gonna lean Oregon, but I don't have a great feel for who's gonna win this whole thing. I'm leaning Oregon though.
I think I'm leading Oregon as well. They there's no head and shoulders team above everyone else this year. It's a wide open field. But I think I would go Oregon.
Yeah, I will say this. I actually like Arizona State to beat the Texas Clemson winner in the quarterfinal.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, I mean, Texas's best win is what A&M, and even that was an ugly win, and A&M's not the greatest thing in the world.
Mm-mm.
Penn State's interesting to me because, like I said, I thought they showed a lot against Oregon, even though they lost. And then, you know, they're playing Boise State in the Fiesta Bowl. Like Boise State can absolutely beat Penn State, in my opinion, in the quarterfinal. But
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a game that Penn State feels like they can win.
Mm-hmm.
And then, you know, Georgia and Atlanta in the Georgia. I don't know. Georgia's weird to me because normally I won't bet against Georgia in playing it at the Sugar Bowl. So that's in Louisiana. I'm sorry, but Georgia normally in the South like that, you know, where it's close to Athens in any way, by car or plane. I went to bet against them, but I don't know about the quarterback situation. And no, like we said, Notre Dame's been impressive since that Northern Illinois disaster. So I wouldn't rule out the Irish getting to the semis either.
Mm-mm.
So I think I guess I'll say my sleepers are Arizona State and Notre Dame then.
That's fair.
I mean, realistically, though, I could see a number of teams getting to the semifinals or even national championship game.
It's wide open.
It is pretty wide open to me, and that's cool. So, and
Yeah.
I think this 12-team playoff is going to end up being a huge success.
Mm-hmm.
Got anything else
I think that's
on
it.
the college football playoff or college football in general?
No, let's have fun.
Okay, so I want to say one thing about the Heisman vote.
Here we go.
So our guy in baseball, Jackson Merrill, lost Robin Rookie of the Year to Paul Skeens, and you know the Merrill argument was, you know, he played every day, you know, he played center field and hit every day, you know, Skeens pitched every 5-6 days, but Skeens was historically dominant. And you know, like, I got nothing against Paul Skeens. Like, I actually really enjoy watching him pitch. I think he's great. Nothing against Paul Skeens at all. I actually like him. I obviously wanted Merrill to win as a Padre fan, but you know, I could be like, okay, that's fine. You know, Skeens was really dominant for rookie pitcher standards. That's fine. But But this it doesn't make sense when you go to the Heisman vote and Travis Hunter, who's good, not great, both offensively and both as a receiver and quarter, in my opinion, wins it over the guy Genty, who is historically dominant one way. Like, our guy lost the Rookie of the Year in baseball because, historically dominant one way prevailed over really good, but not necessarily great both ways. But in the Heisman vote, good, not great, both sides of the ball prevailed over the historically dominant on one side of the ball guy. Just that inconsistency kind of frustrates me, being a Padre fan who wanted to see Merrill win.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And I got somebody telling me, like, a more accurate comparison would be Hunter was Ohtani. No, Hunter is not Ohtani. He is not the best at either. Like, Ohtani might be, but when you factor in the base running, Ohtani's probably the best offensive player in baseball. And when he actually does pitch, even though he doesn't pitch a ton of innings necessarily, he's very good when he does pitch. Now for Hunter to be like Ohtani, he'd have to be like the best wide receiver corner and really good in limited action on the other side of the ball.
Mm-hmm.
So no, he's not Ohtani. He's not the Ohtani of football. Like, stop with that.
Mm-hmm.
I just wanted to get that off my chest real quick because that annoyed me.
I feel you.
All right. I do want to close out on one thing because, we're recording this on the late evening of the 19th. So most of you will probably listen to this on December 20th, which is the anniversary of a couple of San Diego Chargers memories that I'm going to bring up. First of all, marks the 15-year anniversary of the game in 2009 against Cincinnati that I was at, and you and I have talked about this game a lot. You want to tell them what you remember about it?
Obviously, we know this was the game that won us the division that year. Nate the Great Kading, as Josh Lewin said when he kicked the game-winning 52-yard field goal to win that game.
Like I said, I was there for that game, fellas.
Well, the thing that I've always brought up to you about this game, and that I will never forget, this was a Jim Nantz and Phil Simms game. So this was big, the primetime CBS game of the week. So, I believe you were in the end zone where the high wall was.
No, I wasn't in the end zone. I was like in the corner to the side of the high wall. So like on the kind of like probably inside about the 5-yard line ish, but in that corner of the field.
But you were in that vicinity.
Yeah, yeah.
Why I'm bringing that up, there was a moment. This was in the third quarter. The Bengals were backed up near their goal line, and the crowd gave it to them. Jim Nantz and Phil Simms kept on mentioning how effective and how loud our crowd was during that Bengals drive. The Bengals had to use timeouts. The Bengals had penalties. The Bengals had to punt the ball away near the goal line because of our crowd.
Yeah, which makes all these LA Spanos supporters be like, "Oh, you guys never supported them." Like, there was a guy who was saying during the game tonight when someone, San Diego guy, tweeted something like, "Oh, well, there's this many fans in Denver when the Chargers are for Denver in LA when the Chargers are in the playoff hunt." And they're like, and an LA guy replied to him like, "Oh, you mean like in 2008 when all those cheers when Denver scored, in the game that won the division last game of the 08 season?" I went back and watched the clip. That was a freaking golf clap compared to the roars when the Chargers did anything in that game. I watched the whole highlights. Like, these people are so stupid, man. It really pisses me off still.
It's just stupid narrative.
It pisses me off. It's like, and also I don't get it. Like, you have the team. You won. Why do you care what happened in San Diego? You won. You have the team now. Why do you care what happened in San Diego? I don't think anybody I swear nobody in Baltimore rubs it in Cleveland's face like this. Nobody in Tennessee rubs it in Houston's face like this. I swear, dude.
Do you know why?
Nobody in Indianapolis rubs it in Baltimore's face like this.
Do you know why? Do you know why they do this? Because they know deep down they don't have the fan base.
Yeah, and that's why whenever you suggest San Diego getting a team in the future, they try and say it won't happen because they're scared. They're scared that if people from San Diego stop driving up because there's a team down here, they're scared. Like, they won't admit it, but they are.
They know they'll never have the fan base they had here.
Of course not. So that was one of the anniversaries, December 20th. That was the 15 year. I'm gonna bring up the 10 year now for a certain reason. I
This
mean,
is 2014.
yes. Do you know what game I'm talking about?
Hold on.
I'll give you a hint. The guy who coached that team tonight was on the other side of this one.
Was it really the 10-year anniversary of us coming back against the Niners?
Yes. You're right. It is.
It was. Wow. Down 28-7.
The reason I bring this one up is
That's the
I
last
was
game.
a junior in high school at the time, okay?
So was I. So was I.
So me and my big friend group, we're all watching the game in the back room of one of my friends' houses, going crazy when we started coming back and won the game. I still have a picture of my Instagram up with that. I'll probably share the memory on Friday morning so that you guys can see it. I'll probably share the memory assuming it pops up on my memories on Instagram, which I'm assuming it will. Just moments like that, having a team in your hometown, creating moments like that, is why, I'm so bummed that we don't have an NFL team anymore. Why I just want so bad for it to happen again, man.
Yep.
And that's why, I'm doing everything I can. It's like on my NFL to San Diego page, I'm going to tweet out like, hey, let's get the word out there. Let's show them that, like, what a great sports city we are. Like, continue to sell out every Padre and Aztec basketball game, maybe hold some like rally or something. I don't know. Show somebody we care. So somebody who wants to own a team will say, I want to invest there. And then it will happen, in my opinion.
I agree.
The point I was getting to, though, is like that group of friends, I am still close with almost all of that group. Like we still do. We just had a White Elephant holiday party last weekend. We had a Friendsgiving. Like we hang out all the time. We do stuff all the time. We're still close. Like we're now in our mid-20s. Like one of the friends in the group is already married. I'm sure, a couple others, have had girlfriends for a while. So it's like, we're getting, if not now, but 5-10 years from now, we're gonna start, having people in our group are gonna start, having kids of their own. And when that happens, I want them to grow up with an NFL team and having those moments like 10 years ago tonight that we did when we were kids. So
yeah,
I want the future generation, like when me and my friends start, having families and kids, we want them to have what we had, before Dean took that away.
No question.
Like, so that's why I bring it up. That's why. And I mean, we just gotta. I think it's just gonna take one little thing, like, and all of a sudden the dam will break because there's, Eric Weddle still lives here. He was very vocal, when the team left. Drew Brees, who still is here at least part time, has said like the move didn't have to happen. That really sucks for the loyal fans. Like I know they're there from when I was there. Reggie Bush, who's from here, has said that the team should have left. Like there are people who would, be able to make an influence. Like if we can just get that out publicly, like someone will invest, the dam will break, and it'll happen again.
Just have to keep the faith.
I mean, Baltimore, again, lost the. I know you guys are probably tired of me saying this. You're probably like, "Oh Jesus, David, you're going on this again." But I'm gonna say it just so y'all hope that'll happen again. Baltimore lost the Colts, got the Ravens. Houston lost the Oilers, got the Texans. Like,
yep.
And I was told 2 summers ago when the Orioles were here, and there was a guy from Baltimore who was seeing the Orioles play on the West Coast. Said to me, I asked him, like, are you a Ravens fan and were you a Colts fan? He answered yes to both questions. And I talked to him about, I was a Charger fan. We lost them. So I'm happy y'all got a team back after Irsay did that with the Colts. He's like, yeah, man, don't give up hope of getting a team again. There was a lot of time between the Colts and Ravens. I thought we'd never get a team again.
Mm-hmm.
And also, like, I want to mention something too. Like, people are like, oh, the LA teams won't allow it. First of all, I've talked about why why San Diego and Los Angeles are separate, further apart than Philly and New York, Philly and DC, Philly and Baltimore, etc. I've talked about that. Also, Baltimore and Washington, DC are 40 miles apart. the dynasty that was the Joe Gibbs led Washington Redskins happened during the time, coincidentally lined up perfectly with the time in between the Colts and Ravens in Baltimore. And they had a legendary owner in Jack Kent Cooke. Jack Kent Cooke could not make the Redskins into Baltimore's team despite being 40 miles away in the middle of a dynasty. If that is true, which it is, how do you think an LA team would be able to make the Rams, the Chargers would be able to keep enough fans to still claim their San Diego's team, or the Rams get enough fans down here to claim their San Diego's team? It's not going to happen, boys.
Right.
And I think, the TV ratings came out for the Sunday night football game between the Chargers and Kansas City on the 8th, and San Diego was in the top 10 viewership markets for the game. But that game was, the rating I think it was like a 13 or 14. That's also less than half of the rating of what a big Charger game would have been when they were in San Diego. So it's kind of a best of both worlds. Shows,
Right.
the interest in the NFL is still there, but enough people have left the Chargers that they can't claim to still be the team per se down here.
Absolutely.
So I thought that was the best of both worlds where I saw that. Again, I tweeted that on my at NFL_2_SD page that y'all should follow if you don't already.
Yes, at NFL.
And I'm going to start a blog too, talking about, I'm going to start an NFL to San Diego blog too, where I talk about all this stuff, because most of my thoughts that go through my head about it are way more than 280 characters.
Of course.
So I'm going to start a blog about that. So stay tuned for that. I'll have links to that. That's all I got. You got anything else, Matty?
I think for now, no. Let's enjoy some good football this weekend.
Yeah, absolutely.
And hopefully the Aztecs do beat Cal.
Yeah, I mean, if we don't beat Cal, I mean, that would be bad. That'd be a quad 3 loss. So, but Cal's not that good. So I feel good about it coming off 10 days off, where they had 10 days to fix the rebounding.
Right.
And I thought the Ziegler article was pretty good, talking about how they were good at boxing out, not necessarily grabbing the ball. So that's fixable.
That's absolutely
very fixable, especially with a coach like Dutcher and 10 days off.
Right. So I think that's it for now.
All right. Thanks so much for listening, fellas. Matty, good to have you back on here. And again, this is going on YouTube too, to try and reach more people. So thank you all so much for listening to this. I am not sure if I'll have another one before Christmas, so I'll just say happy holidays to everybody, and we'll talk soon.
Yeah, if we don't convene again, Merry Christmas to everyone.
All right. Peace out, fellas.
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, I'm gonna actually it'll show up on my memories tomorrow, but I'll scroll down and on my personal and DM it to you right now.